I think there are several things to keep in mind whenever you're doing a basic portrait drawing, but today I was thinking about the 5 tips that I keep in mind whenever I am constructing and drawing a pencil portrait. I don't really want to talk about shading and cross-hatching, the way you hold your pencil and the marks that you create. That's a topic for a different video, but I want to talk about how I generally map out the proportions and work down to the details of a portrait. The very first thing that I ever do when I start a portrait is I map out an angular silhouette of the subject. This will be a silhouette of the subject's hair, neck, clothing, rather than their skull and their facial feature and where the eyes go. I really want to create a silhouette because in that silhouette I can place all of those finer details and know that I can more proportionally place them. Sometimes when we look at a face and want to draw it, we kind of have an understanding or presupposition of how that face is going to look as we draw it. We have a presupposition of where the eyes are going to go and how the lips are going to be shaped and where the forehead is. But a lot of times we over-exaggerate these features in our eyes, either making them smaller or larger, without actually sticking to the proper proportions. So when I'm looking at this photo of a really beautiful woman, my assumptions about the size of her forehead and just skull in general, lips and nose, those are going to be different from the reality of what the photo is showing me. Being able to map out an angular silhouette of the subject, in this case, kind of a boxy triangular shape for the hair, lets me be able to draw all of those features a little bit more proportionally. Once I have this angular silhouette, I start from large blocky shapes and then narrow down to details and final touches, which I'm going to be doing throughout this whole process. I like to map out the general shape of the hair again with angular lines, and then the face, and then I will map out the facial features on the face proportional to that silhouette that I began with. This is not a foolproof process, and my drawing style is not wholly hyper-realistic. I do like to stylize a little bit, but every time I draw a portrait, I want to learn a little something new in the way that I draw it. For this portrait specifically, the angle of the face was a little bit different from what I usually work with. The face being downturned a little bit and the chin being so foreshortened. So I was excited to draw from this reference so that I could challenge myself a little bit with my proportions. Along with mapping the silhouette of the subject, I think the second most important thing to do when you are drawing a portrait is to begin with detailing an anchor of the drawing. In my drawing, that was the nose. In general, I like to start with the nose because it, for me, is a solid foundation to placing the rest of the facial features since it's central to the face. If you struggle more with drawing the eyes, maybe start with the eyes first. You want to put a lot of good energy and time into detailing a harder to draw part of the face because let's say you start with something that you're more comfortable with and put in a little bit extra time into drawing the face shape, the cheeks, the lips, the nose, let's say, and you get to the eyes, which are maybe the hardest thing to draw for you. You might actually mess up drawing those eyes and you'll have wasted so much time on the rest of the drawing only to start over. Everything else will be so easy to draw if I tackle that first anchor. Something I see a lot in graphite portraits is an overuse of texture in the piece in a way that does not benefit the drawing. Especially when drawing a smoother, softer female face, having a lot of texture on the cheeks and the jaw might make the drawing a lot more rigid and harsh than you were intending. In situations like this, I recommend using a blending stump or your finger to blend out the pencil marks if they become textured and harsh. When drawing skin, it can be easy to add too much texture through your line work. I don't always use a blending stump, but it can be very helpful, especially for a larger drawing like this one. My drawings are generally just a couple of inches tall, so this one spanning the whole page, I do like to use a blending stump to blend out some of those rougher lines. Lastly, I know it can be mystifying to draw hair, especially like in this situation when there are so many beautiful curls to draw. How much detail and darkness do you add to your graphite drawing to convey the hair texture and density and details? Even when drawing a head of hair that is this dark, I like to be selective with the lines that I put down on the page. I think that it can create an airy, whimsical feeling if you are deliberate with the pencil marks that you put down on the paper, especially in something like fluffy hair. with this many curls, do you draw every individual curl? I think that would be such a time-consuming process, and it might not actually add to the end result as much as you would think. I like to go in all around the mass of the hair and add little details here and there, chipping away at the details until I come to a point where I'm pretty satisfied with the way that the hair looks. I like to draw shadows and larger blocks that I fill in rather than in gentle gradients. This applies to the hair and to the face. Blocking in these shapes will help to create a faceted three-dimensional figure, as opposed to I have found for myself when I just use a smooth gradient and not so much blocking in those shapes, I can lose some of the dimension and the facets of the face. These are some of the basic tenets that I keep in my head when drawing a portrait in graphite. I'm selective about how much detail I add to a piece and generally just add the most detail to the face, having the rest of the hair and the clothes fade out in a little bit of a more rough textured style. I love drawing portraits in graphite, and I hope you learned something from my process today. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos, because I put out new videos Tuesdays and Thursdays talking about both my traditional and my digital art processes. Feel free to check out the links in the description. My trip to Crete is live. We already have 14 travelers confirmed, so come join us if you want to draw with me in graphite and watercolor in Greece. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video.